right, hello everybody, and welcome to night 2 of the No Holds Barred Wrestling Podcast. Yesterday we were reacting to Clash of the Castle PLE. Now tonight we're back to review episode 2 of Who Killed WCW, what Josh and I truly wanted to do yesterday. Even though we enjoyed ourselves, but now we're here for night 2. The Kibblenator is in the house. I'm the immortal one, Robert Michaels. Those are our wrestling names, if you guys don't know. But the Kibblenator, Josh, what's up, brother? How you doing?
Man, what a Father's Day. All day we went to the Riverwalk here in Tampa Bay. Walked the Riverwalk, got an ice pop. We got some no pizza. We went Mexican food today. Went get little chips and salsa and a little margarita. Then I come back, I'm like, wait a minute. I got a show tonight and we're talking WCW. I was hyped. So I've been waiting. I've been in this chair for about an hour just thinking about what I'm going to say about the show because it's getting better and better as the episodes go on. It's only been 2, but
it's only been 2 episodes. But it's just like when I was starting to rewatch, and I have to get back into it. I was starting a tradition with my son, basically rewatching every Monday Nitro WCW event. You know, we didn't do Saturday night, WCW Saturday night, but we were doing WCW Nitro, and then we'd watch the pay-per-view that matches with that Nitro. But we would bring back that nostalgia. That's what this is doing for me. I mean, rewatching this is really getting me back in the feels and bring me back to my childhood. And now, of course, it's a different perspective because you see what's said about Goldberg, and you're seeing the little things. But probably as a kid, we ignored, or as a younger, we kind of ignored because it was Goldberg. You just cared for the spear and the jackhammer. But then you see the Scott Hall thing, and you're like, it's like, damn, I thought that was because he was old. It's like, no, not really. But that's neither here nor there. But no, I'm going to tell you, first off, we both enjoyed episode 1. How did you feel about episode 2 before we get into all
Yeah, episode 2 was great. It really broke down. I'm glad you said perspective because the word perspective is going to be used a lot tonight because just like you said, when you're watching something back, whether it could be anything, your taste in music, the movies you used to like, wrestling. I was so hyped about Goldberg and everything. And then this really brought me back to, I was so like, if Josh now could go back and smack like the 12-year-old Josh in the face and go, dude, wake up. This guy's terrible. Like would I do it? Or would I let my younger self enjoy it? Because man, that's what really opened my eyes about this episode. Everything that we see, whether it be the Goldberg situation, the finger poke of doom, the head people of TNT wanting to turn it to the PG era before the PG era existed.
Yep.
Targeting kids. Like that's where
standard practices, right? Is that what
well, yeah, and I wrote down in my notes, they wanted to do the PG era before the PG era existed. They wanted the families and the kids, and they wanted to stop the X-rated stuff that Eric Bischoff was doing, or not X-rated, but whatever. Just a lot of things that I didn't see back then that I'm seeing now. That's why I love these episodes.
Yeah, I love that, about the perspective thing, because it's true. Like you go, man, if I was if I could go back to my kid's self, as you're saying, and you say, dude, no, he sucks. But then you kind of ruin. That's what's going on now with wrestling these days, because we know what happens behind the scenes. We know who sucks and who doesn't. Back then, we didn't care. As a kid, you don't care. You just know there's this big behemoth who no one could beat, that he is lifting the giant, Paul White, the giant, who's supposed to be Andre the Giant's son. He was presented as back in the day, 7'4", 600 pounds. I just love the exaggeration thing, but when he's lifting him over his head and he's doing, you're like, this guy's amazing. No one could beat him. And then he beats Hollywood Hogan, and we'll get into that and how that came to be. But that's why I said now we look at it and go, damn, no wonder this all kind of went to crap. And then they went a little too long with him. But back then we didn't care. No one could tell me, who's ever watching, everyone who's watching, and thank you so much for watching No Holds Barred on the Finstock Sports Network, whether you're watching on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you are. We appreciate you, or listening on our podcast channel. But no one who watched WCW back in the day can't tell me, oh, they weren't, unless, of course, they were legitimate haters on Goldberg, but hated Goldberg, or hated any guy specifically because of their in-ring stuff. You hate them as a fan, not as their in-ring. Now we do. Now, like again, I was just talking the other day about Will Ospreay and Ricochet. And I saw the same clip I think I talked to you about a while back, where they started their thing in this gymnasium and all they did was a bunch of flips over each other. And I'm like, it's the freaking Circus Olay.
Mhm.
Now though, maybe back in the day as a kid, I probably went, ooh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But now I look at it another way. I prefer old school, but that's neither here nor there. But man, let's start this off with Bret Hart. I mean, why not? Again, you don't have the Ric Flair, you don't have Ric Flair or Hulk Hogan. Obviously Savage has passed away. We haven't seen Luger. Scott Hall's gone. Kevin Nash is in here, but there are guys that you would love to hear from and their perspectives, because we've heard in different podcasts and or shoot interviews and stuff. But in this type of format, I would love to hear Ric Flair discuss what he truly thinks killed. Now, of course, he did tweet something earlier, like last,
Mhm.
I think, about the three heads, and then he came back and he apologized. Like, well, I did not understand what they were going through, and that's what this kind of brings up too, because a lot of people will automatically say, you know, based off what you hear from Bret Hart or Ric Flair or whomever, oh, it's Eric Bischoff's fault. Oh, it's Hulk Hogan's fault. Oh, it's this guy's fault. It's Vince Russo. But then you're listening to this and you're watching this, and you see from the very beginning, even in episode 1, how much, other than Ted Turner, the Turner executives wanted WCW shut down, and how they did everything in their power to make it a living hell for Eric Bischoff. You're like, damn, this really the for them to even win 83 weeks was a testament, for how they were able to do that with everything against them. Because in WWE, Vince McMahon's the head honcho, the WWF back then. No one's trying to force any. He wants WWF to succeed. Eric Bischoff is trying to push WCW, and he's working against the grain. But anyway, it would have been great to hear from those guys, but we get to hear from Bret Hart. We've heard from him in the past what he said about WCW and Eric Bischoff. But we get to hear about why he signed with WCW. He signed for, well, first off, Ted Turner was very happy with the ratings. Loved what Nitro was doing.
Mhm.
They were killing it week in and week out. They were Nitro was the hottest show on television. They were beating out the WWF. WWF was trying to figure out, how can we match what they're doing or better. And of course, that's when the Attitude Era comes. But they say, okay, instead of saying let's work on this one show and continue to make it better, Ted Turner says, no, let's have 2 shows. I love the ratings. Let's get 2 shows. Let's build WCW Thunder. Eric Bischoff says, okay, I love the perspective that Kevin Nash brought up about 10 hours of,
Yes.
like, it makes total sense. I get it. Now, it's kind of funny thinking about how wrestling is today, but it's so true. It is a lot of work. I get it. But Ted Turner don't care about that. He cares about the ratings. He cares about beating WWF. He cares about the money, and he cares about being right. So they make WCW, just like Hulk Hogan with Eric Bischoff. Eric Bischoff sees an opportunity. He says, okay, I'm going to get Bret Hart to be the face of Thunder. Signs him to a $2.8 million deal, brings him in. He has a huge, debut. Show, basically talks on Nitro. Fans are excited, but then it dies down from there. Just like Hulkamania Hogan, Hitman Hart, the fans were kind of low on the character, and WCW had nothing for Bret Hart, which is kind of crazy to think, especially from what he was coming off of. That's very quick on WCW Thunder. Now looking back, hearing what that is like, well, back then, were you a fan of Thunder? Did you ever really look forward to watching WCW Thunder?
I mean, I watched it if I had time. It wasn't something that I gotta watch Thunder. It reminds me of a company that we have now that started up a wrestling show on Collision, or on Saturday, called Collision, and they didn't hire, but they brought back CM Punk to run Collision and base everything around that. So and they had plans for him, but obviously plans changed, and now they're failing on Collision. Same thing with Nitro. Not Nitro. Gosh, I can't think. Thunder. That's how forgettable Thunder is. I mean, do you remember one moment on Thunder? Like, hey man, that was cool, or hey, that was awesome. The problem.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was gonna. Yeah. The problem is this is pre-brand split.
Bam, right there.
So it's hard to. But Hogan on Monday, Hogan on Thursday. Like it's too much Hogan or whoever. Sting,
Whoever
it's
it
too
is. No, I
much.
agree.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we would want, I was against brand splits for a longest time, and when I was younger, because I'm like, man, this is stupid. This is one company. But now I get it. If I want to watch Roman Reigns, I know where to go. If I want to watch this person, I know where to go. So if you could have capitalized that, you had this idea with Bret Hart. Okay, he's going to be the face of Thunder. Well, then it should have been a true brand split if you wanted two separate shows. I don't know how that would work out back in the day. Maybe Ted Turner's like, no, we need Hogan, whatever the case may be. But when you put too much food on your plate and you can't eat it all, or you can't prepare 2 shows in 3 days, whatever it was, it becomes watered down and they can get worn out. And that's the pressure Eric Bischoff had to deal with. That's the pressure Tony Khan's dealing with now. It's too much wrestling, too much TV time, too much writing in such a little amount of time. It was, I get it. I understand now. I didn't understand it watching perspective. Now I see the issues of like, wow, that's why Thunder failed, because time, honestly, and preparation or lack
Yeah.
thereof.
And again, now, and you when you hear about WWE now or the McMahon, and I'm sure it's still the same, but with the McMahon era, you think of the writers, and people go, man, I like it back in the day where it was just one person or a committee. Now it's the writers. But think about if they would have had writers back then, writers for Nitro, writers for Thunder,
Mm-hmm.
it probably would have took a lot off. And that's the other thing too. If they would have done the legitimate brand split where it was, yeah, like you said, Hogan on Nitro, Hart on Thunder, and you want to watch Bret Hart, you got to watch Thunder. You want to see Ric Flair, you watch him on Nitro. You want to see the Wolfpack, you're going to watch him on Thunder. You know what I mean? If they legitimately done that and say, okay, Eric, you're running the show, but at Kevin Nash, it's you're on Thunder, you're booking Thunder, and Eric, you're going to book Nitro or oversee it and maybe put DDP or something. I don't know. But it's I can understand how that truly, because this episode shows how burnt out Eric Bischoff was writing these things and dealing with all the personalities, not only dealing with the wrestlers, but and in dealing with how to create content and make the best story out there and the best show. But he was dealing with all the executives, telling him how to do his job, telling him how to do everything, even though he was the one creating all this. You could see how it kind of leads to where it goes towards the end of him finally leaving and him getting fired, because at one point he just said, you know what, I don't care. I'm going to make their lives a living hell because they're making my lives a hell. I'm going to be disrespectful. I'm going to be a pain in the ass and whatever. And eventually, of course, and we're going to talk about this, gives the booking committee
Oh yeah.
to Kevin Nash. Terry Lynch, first off, thank you for watching. We appreciate you jumping in, even if it was just for a minute, and adding your comment. I can't believe anyone with one brain cell could like fake wrestling. I would just ask you, Terry, do you watch anything on TV? Do you watch any TV show? Do you like soap operas? Do you like movies? It's the same thing. That's it.
I wasn't gonna address it because he doesn't. I mean, he wasn't disrespectful to
No,
us.
I don't. They're
Personally,
not
so
disrespectful at all. I'm thinking, but that's my only thing would be, then when people say, oh, if you don't know, how can anyone like fake wrestling? Well, again, it's entertainment.
hey,
It's you love TV. You watch any TV shows. Is ER real? Are those real doctors?
hey.
Is James Bond really a secret agent? No.
All I gotta say is I wanted to go watch Inside Out 2 tonight or today with my kids. It's a fake cartoon, Terry. Man, I can't believe it's gonna go make billions in the box office. I can't believe all this. Anyway, let's get on with the show.
But I appreciate you watching, Terry. But anywho, and everyone too still tuning in. We appreciate you. But anyway, continuing. Bret Hart. How could I can understand this was the problem with WCW, and it was the issue with TNA in the past. Eventually burnt TNA out, and probably an issue with AEW now. It is, every time somebody big is dropped, they run to pick them up. Of course, Bret Hart coming out of WWF at that time after the Montreal screw job. First off, he was red hot as a heel. The fans loved him, but he was red hot as a heel in the States. That story couldn't be more real. Obviously, comes out of there. You could have truly. I mean, if anybody could have wanted to come in and hate on WWF and be Eric's partner and truly crap, because Hogan wasn't really crapping on McMahon, because Hogan and McMahon had that love-hate relationship, and all this whatnot, and Vince McMahon helped Hogan get a bigger contract when Hogan's deal was up, or but Bret Hart truly hated McMahon at that point. You could have truly came off and go, he's with me, this is where you want to be. I mean, he could have been that guy. They don't do it. We know they truly waste. I mean, we got Sting versus Hart. We got, Hart did become the WCW champion at one point. But let me ask you this perspective, but also kind of looking back. Let's say you're the booker and you just signed Bret Hart to WCW. What would have done at that moment with him? Who would you have put him with?
It's so difficult to say, because what do you do with a big star coming over? Do the new guys? Here's the problem, Bobby, and no one wants to think about this perspective. We talk about WCW. We're watching the show. We're learning the egos: Nash, Hogan, Flair, even Dallas Page, Goldberg. We're gonna get in his ego later. Now we hear the horror stories from WCW guys going to WWF and getting hazed, bullied, treated as outsiders. Now, how could we imagine someone like Bret Hart, your Eric Bischoff? Like, okay, we're bringing in WWF guy over here, WWE guy over here, and he's a hot act, and we're paying him $2.8 million. Now, how's Scott Hall? Is Scott Hall going to want a job to this guy? Does he want to lay down for him? Does Hogan want to? Does Nash want to? How does he get how does he get someone to say, hey, this new guy coming in from a new place, probably making more money than you got to lay down for him? Because you know what? Let's be honest. Bret Hart's not coming in and losing his first feud. Any wrestler that comes back or debuts in any promotion, they start out hot. Jade Cargill, Will Ospreay, right now, right? A lot of them. CM Punk, he's going to come out hot. He's not losing his first. Cody did it. So how can you bring in Bret Hart and go, hey, Ric Flair, we're going to put him against you, or whoever? It's a lose-lose, because first off, you're going to make your talent that you already have here upset. But if you put Bret Hart against some jobbers or some low class, and you're like, man, what are we going to do? They had to be able to work together. And it seems like watching the show, everyone had a giant ego and they didn't want, this war was real. So maybe, I don't know, perspective. How would you feel, Bobby, if someone came into your job right now and said, hey, Bobby, this guy's going to come over here and take your spot, but first he's going to beat you down on the way? How would you feel? It's hard to manage that.
How much you paying me?
It still doesn't matter. And
here's something for Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. People talk about creative control. Hulk Hogan won't work for me. What Kevin Nash and Scott Hall did that people keep forgetting is with their deals was that every time someone came in and they had more money, if like, I don't know what their contract was. I don't know if it was 1.5 or whatever, but if they couldn't just get over Hogan, but if Bret Hart, he signed that $2.8 million deal, automatically Kevin Nash and Scott Hall got $2.8 million.
Yep.
And you're right. And that was the problem too. Egos got in the way. I mean, if whatever contracts you sign, and that's fair, But like Conan brought that up, where a lot of the guys said, wait, why the hell is this guy making more than me? Or why does this guy earn this check higher than me? Or what the hell? And it's hard. And that's why, again, you sympathize kind of with Eric Bischoff. Now he made his own bed. I mean, I think Eric would be the first one to say that. Yeah, I probably should have done that differently. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's like, damn, you're dealing with this, you're dealing with that. Now if I was running WCW, and I guess, it's easier said than done, but if I'm thinking like, okay, obviously you can't put Hogan and Bret together right away. Even though Bret Hart said, man, they should have put us together. They should have put us in a feud. Yeah, that's money. Bret Hart, Hollywood Hulk Hogan, that's a WrestleMania. That's a main event. That's a Starrcade. But you don't do that right away. You build towards that. And again, Bret Hart, I think, should have come in as a heel. I think he should have came in and worked with a DDP. Mm-hmm. Or maybe if Ric Flair was a face at that time, you could have started a good story. I think Ric Flair probably would have been good just because Flair, I think, is in more to his it was a mistake on his part that he kept saying, yes, okay, I'll draw to this guy. I'll drop to this guy or whatever, but I think Flair could have done business the right way. It would have made sense. Or which they did, you had Benoit, you had Eddie Guerrero, you had Jericho. But those guys would not have made sense right away for a Bret Hart. I think you had to put him in a big story, pair him with a guy, and let him build a story 2 months worth or 3 months worth of matches, or a story build up, 3 matches at a pay-per-view. I don't know where it went wrong. I mean, I think Sting would have been a a good fit. I think they did that. I don't know how long after Bret Hart came in that they did Sting versus Hart, but I think that would have been a great story. I just don't know. Doll,
I,
what's up, girl? Thank you
I
for
do.
tuning in.
Oh, I do think this. I didn't want to lose my train of thought.
No, go
I
for
do
it.
think this. This is just me fantasy booking. I got some crazy ideas. This is why professional wrestlers, our fans, should never book a show. Why not? He just come off the Survivor Series loss, right? Screw job. Come in there. It's all public knowledge now. Nash and Hall are the buddies. Hey man.
Ooh,
Hey, your boy. I'm here because you're your boy, whatever. And he comes in there and he starts a feud with Nash and Hall because he's like, are you guys in on it? Or did you guys know about whatever? Why not? Why
you
not
son
play
of a,
off
you
of that?
son of a, you just okay. Look what you did.
Why not?
You played me like a fiddle. I asked you that question first. You went around. You
I
let
thought
me answer, and then you come out on top. Hulk Hogan wannabe, Chris Jericho
hey,
lookalike.
that didn't work. That doesn't work for me, brother. But all I gotta say is, wouldn't that be fire though? Because it's in
That would have
what
been
it.
perfect. It's
Yes,
real.
yes.
What's more real than Nash and Hall came into WCW saying we're from New York, we're with Connecticut, we're the big guys. This is
Mm-hmm.
where that would have been perfect for Bret Hart
Yep.
to come in and go, I'm calling out Nash and Hall and Sean Waltman right now, and,
Yeah.
and address them. Obviously you can't say Razor Ramon or another, but the 1-2-3 Kid, and they could have done something with that where the fans were like, ooh, because we all knew who the Click was, even
Yeah.
back then.
All you
We
had to
all
say
knew who the
was,
Click was.
all you had to say was, you guys think you're the click? Well, I'm here to, whatever. Like, you got whatever. Just bring up the story. You don't have to like name what happened or whatever. Just go. I got screwed back home, and I'm coming here to take out. That's all you had to do, and then that would have been money. I have not heard one person on this green earth say that. By the way, I just thought of it. I honestly, as you were talking, I wasn't trying to get over on you, Bobby. It
That's all
just
right.
came up as you were talking because I'm looking at Nash on your little green screen. I'm like,
Yes. I
yeah.
love this. Yeah. No, dude, it's freaking money. And thank you, doll. Appreciate you. Happy Father's Day to Josh as well, that came on later.
There we go. And
Thank you for
Justin,
watching. And
Justin,
Justin,
thank you.
man, Justin Toner, part of the has his own wrestling show there with Josh Mabry. But thank you for tuning in. Put your information below so everyone else could see it there and tune into your stuff as well, Justin. But anyway, man, that's so good. I love that. Bret Hart, that would have been perfect. And I think Scott Hall would do business. Scott Hall was that guy. I mean, he was great at putting people over. And of course, he would have been great with someone like Bret Hart. Now, the end of Bret Hart. Essentially the end. They put him with Goldberg. Bret says, in when he was in the ring, I knew eventually I would get face Goldberg, but he knew, and they showed clips of it, and we all knew. You could tell when Goldberg hits, he hits hard, and again, obviously, as Terry would say, it's fake. But sometimes the moves aren't. They hurt, Yeah, no one's gonna drop you on your head. You're not supposed to get pile drive truly in the ring, but sometimes those kicks, those chops, those body slams, the spears, those are real. You better tighten up your stomach and get ready to get hit. And Goldberg was known for doing that. He would stiff you, they would call it. They stiff you. And so Bret even told him, he said, hey man, he said, you see it, and you see him when he shakes his hand in the ring, is don't hurt me. Work with me. You would think Goldberg would get out of his own head and say, this is one of the best in-ring guys ever. Let him show me. Let me have a killer match. Because Bret Hart, Kurt Hennig, I'm thinking like, who's it? Kurt Angle. There are certain Shawn Michaels, whoever. Those are guys in the ring who could make anybody look good. You put them in a ring, and people say the saying is, you put him in the ring with a broom mop, with a broom or a mop, and he's going to make it a 5-star match. Bret Hart could do that. Bret Hart could make Goldberg look like $1 million. Now he didn't, because Goldberg didn't let him. Goldberg did his thing, and Goldberg says, now that was controversial. When he says, and you see him read his lips, watch for the kick. And Bret goes, watch the kick. And Bret kind of put his hand up, but got stiffed, kicked right in the side of the damn head.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, of course, they finish the match. He gets speared freaking through the ring. They wrap up the match. Yes, Brett wrestled a couple more matches. He had a hardcore match with Terry Funk, I think, and his final match was against Kevin Nash later on. They wore street clothes for that one. I had to research because I was like, I'm pretty sure Brett wrestled a little more, but it was the kick that essentially ended his career because he was having those concussion-like symptoms. But I found that, is there any ounce in you that would put any blame on Bret Hart for not knowing or not protecting himself when he knew the kick was coming? Because the reason why I asked is because Goldberg kind of said it. Goldberg's like, you knew the kick was coming. Like, I don't know
Yep.
how many times I got to apologize. I feel bad, but you didn't protect yourself. I mean, so I kind of found that a little controversial. I was like, damn. I was like, yeah, okay, I get it. You called it, but you could have still watched what the hell you were doing. I mean,
Yep. Okay.
so is there any ounce of you that gives Bret any kind of blame for that?
Okay, yes and no. So I'm surprised they left this part out. I'm really shocked. There was a part where after the kick, Bret Hart went to go put the figure 4 on the post and lean back. They didn't put that in there because that was a bigger spot.
Yeah, he didn't
than
hold
the
his
kick.
leg, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah, didn't hold his leg. So they didn't put that in there. They made Bret look like the bad guy here. And hey, I'm
Great
not
point.
taking sides, but they didn't put that in there for a reason. I know Bret talked about it because you can't go a Bret Hart interview without him talking about that spot. Hold my leg. If you don't hold my leg, I can't hold myself up, and my head's gonna hit right on the. And what happened?
Yeah,
And it happened. So they didn't even talk about that. That really pissed me off. That irked me because that's part of the story.
Fair. That's fair.
So they really painted Bret Hart because they probably were like, oh, he's being negative the entire time. So let's paint him as one of the negative people and never give him credibility. Okay, with that being said, yes, Bret has some kind of blame here. Watch the kick. Well, I didn't know his kick. Are you not watching his matches? Do you not know who he is? He's your biggest star in your company right now. At the point, you should know everyone's moves, especially if you're going to go work with a guy for a 15-minute match, whatever it was going to be. But at what point can he just let it go and go, man, it happened? It's unfortunate. If we're watching Big E right now, which we do,
yeah,
he's not sitting here. It's only been 3 years. It feels like it could be longer, could be shorter. He's not cussing out this guy, Ridge Holland, every single second he gets. It happened. Recover. There's more to life. Like, let it go. So I get Bull Goldberg. Like, how many times can he say he's sorry? Because he said he's sorry so many times. And I listened to a recent Goldberg interview with Chris Jericho. He said he's done saying sorry. If you can't accept it, move on, Bret. If you can't accept it, then go after yourself. Because I've said sorry so many times. And, saying sorry back then maybe didn't mean much, but saying sorry now means a lot, and he still is. Or actually, he said he quit because now he understands what he did, and he did was wrong. Bill Goldberg admits what he did was kind of wrong. But Bret has to take accountability. It's both sides. It truly is both sides in the situation. They just painted Bret as the kind of.
I like that you brought that example up because I remember that, and I went back to kind of because I wanted to follow up on what happened with Bret after that kick, and I saw an article that referenced that, and I was like, holy crap! And so going back and looking at that, it is exactly what happened. It was the drop too that doesn't help it at all. I'm sure he got the concussion from the kick, but I mean, again, he finished that match, and I'm sure it didn't help what everything else had happened. And I did pay. I mean, that does fall on Bret a lot too, and I like Bret. Obviously, I love listening to his stories. Especially when he's not being bitter, which is hard, not to find, right? I mean, but if you sit down and you listen to a Bret Hart story, I mean, if you find one where he's not crapping on Goldberg and he's saying, man, Goldberg was red hot, they were pushing him. He's not crapping on Hulk Hogan and talking about Hulk Hogan, and he's not crapping. Not saying that, oh, I don't want to hear anything he's crapping on, but no, because everything he's like, whether let's say Shawn Michaels, when he's not shitting on somebody, but he's saying, man, Shawn Michaels, man, I had killer matches with him. And he starts telling you the stories and he's telling you the psychiatry. And then it's like, oh, I love listening to that.
Yep.
Everything else, though, is hard to listen to because it all comes out as bitter. It's like, dude, you were signed to a $2.8 million contract. What can you really hate? If the guys that they did put you against, you're Bret Hart, you should be able to put over anybody or put yourself over with anyone. I mean, I get it. Yeah, it doesn't help But again, you put yourself in a situation. I mean, you wanted to leave WWF because they wanted to go with Shawn Michaels. You didn't want to put Shawn Michaels over. And again, I don't know what happens. I know we've heard all the stories behind the scenes, but you knew you were going to WCW. You knew the big fish were in that fish tank. You know, the Hogans, the Flairs, the Nash, the Halls, the Stings. You were going in there. You were leaving WWF because Austin, Shawn Michaels, the Undertaker. You were like, damn, I'm starting to take a step back. Now you go into basically a smaller fishbowl with larger fish at that time, and expected to come out with some major thing. It's a perspective. Go back to that. It's kind of like, damn, dude. But no, it sucks because it did rob us of any potential Bret Hart matches that we could have saw, later on. Maybe Bret would have came back to WWE, would have gotten that last Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, if they would ever came to terms, I mean, yeah, we were robbed of that. We did get Bret Hart later in the ring later on, when he's wearing the shorts and the hockey jersey, but it wasn't the same. He couldn't take a bump. He's not allowed to. Even if he wanted to, he can't, because he would get sued by some company, I think, something like that on him. But it sucks. But again, and he says, oh, Eric Bischoff lies through his teeth. Look, Eric Bischoff's not perfect, but I don't ever see Eric as a liar. I don't see, a lot of the stories he tells, he would admit when he's wrong, or, yeah, I came off stupid here, blah, 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 blah. But I've never got the sense that, again, this as a wrestling fan, what he did as a character, everything else, love Hulk Hogan. Was one of my favorites. Was my favorite growing up. Hulk Hogan, Hollywood Hogan. That freaking dude right there to me was the coolest freaking guy in the world in wrestling. But all of them were. I loved all of them really. Notice I'm blocking Goldberg though, but he was all right. But you got to take what Hulk Hogan says with a very, very, very thin grain of salt. I found the cure for cancer, and then they took it from me. He's like, what? Hogan, come on, dude. What? But Eric, I never take Eric as a liar. I take Eric as somebody who, yeah, he had a whole bunch of crap going on. Plus, he made a mistake. You think of Tony Khan now, it's kind of funny because you would think Tony Khan may take Eric's things. Why would I take advice from you? Look what you did. Well, maybe he would teach you that that's not the right way to do it. Justin says, I love Bret. He's one of my favorites of all time, but he could hold on to grudges and be bitter. Glad he and HBK at least patch things up. Hope he can let things go with Goldberg. I just saw a picture with him and Goldberg, like a recent picture. So yeah, him and Bret together. So I don't know. Maybe they poked him a little too much and then he just went off. But when he calls Eric a liar, I'm like, I don't think Eric was a liar. I just don't think Eric had anything for it. He's like, dude, let's get you on Thunder. You'll be the face of Thunder. And then it's like you said, there was no brand split. If there was a brand split, okay, here's the world's champion, here's the WCW champion. Of course, nobody thought of that at that time. But I could see it where NWO Black and White and then DDP and Rick, and Ric Flair on Nitro, and Bret Hart and the Wolfpack and whatever on Thunder. There was plenty of wrestlers in WCW. They had international superstars. They had the cruiserweight division. Give credit to where credit's due. Eric Bischoff put those guys on the map. And that's something Conan brought up. We'll talk about that later. But Conan was like, he gave the Luchas a chance. So there could have been that opportunity for Bret Hart, but they just never did it. Goldberg was, even though, he, like you said, they painted Bret Hart in a certain kind of way. They did not give Goldberg any type of credit. They were... Kevin Nash and Bret Hart were very critical of Goldberg. Nash has been critical in the past, calling Goldberg a mark, but there were some good things about it, which is true. Goldberg, I mean, a physical, we talk about like Drew McIntyre, Goldberg, physical specimen, he looks like your prototypical pro wrestler minus, of course he had the Stone Cold gimmick, with the black tights and the black, boots and whatever, and not gimmick, but the look. But again, they rushed him through. He was an Atlanta Falcon. They rushed him through I forget what that was called back then, their training ground. It was a certain name, the power plant. I think it was called the power plant, WCW's training camp. and they rushed him through there, got him into Nitro, and he beat Hugh Morris, and they just ran with it.
Yep.
They ran with it, and eventually he had the streak. Of course, as Nash brings up, and Goldberg says, "Who gives a shit?" But Nash said, "They thank you. Yes, the power plane. I was right. You see, I didn't have to look that up. They go, they bumped up that record. They kind of, what do you call that? Juiced it up. They're like,
Yep.
oh, he's 100-0, and really he was like 75.
Mm.
And but still, the fans loved it. Kids were going nuts already. Men, dads, and moms, they were all going crazy for Goldberg. Eventually, though, Eric Bischoff gets a call from Hulk Hogan that, let's wrestle. Let's wrestle. I want to wrestle Goldberg on Nitro, and I'm gonna drop the title. It's time. I'm gonna drop the title to him.
Mm.
Sets Goldberg up for this massive monster run as the WCW World Champion. I remember watching that when I was younger, and again, I've seen it before. I remember Hogan getting lifted up, and then 1, 2, 3, huge pop. Goldberg wins, and then again, you set up that monster run as the world champion. Now, it was cool back then, and you can tell me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm sure it was cool for you as a young fan, but looking back, was it too soon?
Yeah. Michael, I see your question. I'm going to answer that after we talk about Bill Goldberg for a second. Yeah, it was so cool. It was so cool to see Goldberg do all that stuff. Week after week, he's world championship matches on Nitro. At the time, you're like, this is so cool. He's going to crush Chavo Guerrero, right, in 3 seconds. Oh, he's going to crush this guy. It was always an under guy when he beat someone on Nitro for the championship. But yeah, way too soon. But at the time, it's like, yes, push a guy. We want someone new.
Yeah.
You really wanted someone new. It was always the same. I've gone back and watched those wrestling bios. Nitro versus. I'm sure you've seen them.
Uh-huh.
And watching those earlier ones, like, man, it's always Hogan. It's always this guy. It's always the same guys. So you want to see someone new. Even now, 2024, we want to see someone new. It's always, man, Roman's had it for so long. Let's get LA Knight in there. Let's get Jey Uso, right? But they don't pull the trigger because they're smart enough to know that's the wrong thing to do.
Good point.
Should Eric have gone, hey, Hogan, maybe we don't put him over. Maybe we don't do this. So somebody should have, this goes back to Hogan. This is his genius idea, right? Maybe someone should have said, hey, man, this isn't a good idea. Maybe we shouldn't do this. But how could you stop this? Everyone's chanting Goldberg. Everyone wants it. 2024. Goldberg's music hits on AEW, TNA, WWE right now. What's everyone doing? They're getting up. Goldberg. Everyone still will to this day. If you like him, if you don't like him.
It's true.
I don't like Bill Goldberg. I do not want to see him wrestle ever again. I didn't want to see him return. I didn't want to see the matches we have for the past 10 years, it feels like. Not one of them was good. Not one of them was worth my time. Not one of them was interesting. But when he came out, damn right, I'm still saying Goldberg. You're damn right, I love the entrance. But that's all he is now, a theme song and entrance. That's what he was back then, too. And no one realizes it.
It's true. You always waited for the knock from the security guard, the police officer. You got hyped with the steam. It's true. Yep. You're right.
All he was and all he ever is, all he ever was an entrance and a theme song. There was nothing else to Bill Goldberg. Nothing. But you're selling to children. I was a kid. I was young. I was 12, 13, 14. I was hyped for Bill Goldberg every single time. Boom, knock on the door, headbutts the door, comes out, rah, rah, right? It's freaking cool. I don't remember one Bill Goldberg match, and I'm like, man, that was a great match. Even back then. Not one. Man, that was a cool match. Not one moment, not one spot, nothing. The only spot I remember was him getting tased.
Well, I would say spots. I mean, because that's where he was famous for, where, you think of Chris Jericho get speared through the Elimination Chamber, the Survivor Series with Lesnar, the shock of that.
I'm talking more about his WCW days.
Oh, the WCW run. Okay, well, again, the Hogan spot. Not, first off, Michael, I don't think you're wrong in regards to what you said with Hogan, saying, hey, I'm, let's drop the belt to Goldberg. You're right. I think Hogan wanted to, do that. put Goldberg over, like Goldberg make that run. Here's the thing. Well, I've said this in the past, and that goes for a lot of these top guys: Austin, Hogan, Cena. Well, I'll say Austin. I've heard Austin say it before. People say that about Austin. Same thing with Hulk Hogan. You know, when they're pitching an idea to them, and they're like, okay, you know, let's say, okay, we're gonna put Goldberg over. Let's say it was the other way around. Hogan's gonna look at you, and this is what Eric has said, and you know, other people have said it, not McMahon, but about Hogan. It was like he rubs his, you know, he goes like that with his mustache, and he looks at you. He goes, okay, what's next? What happens after that? You know, there's always, okay, I'm gonna drop him now, but what's gonna happen at the next pay-per-view? Same thing with Austin. You know, okay, I'm gonna lose to Brock Lesnar. What happens next? Oh, well, he's wins the King of the Ring, so we're never gonna fight again. No, I'm not doing that. Because, you know, and for Hogan, I think my thought, what I was going to say, and Michael brings it up here, is I think Hogan said, yeah, Hogan says, okay, that dude's red hot. I'm the red hot heel, or I'm the ultimate heel. Let's drop the belt to him. I could go do other things. I could go take a break now. Well, I don't remember what exactly Hogan did after dropping the belt to Goldberg, but I think it was more of like, I could drop it to him now, and then when I come back, I get my win back. You know what I mean? And I could be the one to beat the streak. Of course, that never happened, you know, however it went. But I think that was the motive. I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but, you know, yeah, see, Stone Cold's well known for going, okay, but what's next? They all should do, and they all should. Though that they're protecting their characters. That's how the top guys did it. But you want to answer?
Here's what I want to say about Vince Russo and all the Vince Russo chatter going on in the chat. Can we save it for next week? Because next week is the Vince Russo episode. I'll give my opinion short and sweet. He's a hack, no talent. But we'll get there. We'll get there next week. Seriously, because next week is going to be Russo mania, and I don't want to give it all away now. But just no talent, hack. That's all he is to me. All right. I don't know if you want to answer it, Bobby. But that's just my answer. Sorry, I can't wait to get into it.
Yeah, Michael. I think Josh is right, even though I think he answered a little bit. I think next week for sure, because Bruce, it's going to be about Vince Russo, what happened in WCW. If we're talking about WCW, Vince Russo, and I see what you're saying here about he needed someone to protect him. It was just like when Eric Bischoff came back, and Eric Bischoff running it before Russo. They were on the Titanic. Russo came in to save a sinking ship. Whether we agree with his vision or not, and what he did after and everything else, and you know, that's a different story. But we'll see more next week. We'll see on Tuesday night, 10 o'clock on Vice. You know, we'll see what people say about it. Bro, that's what he likes to say is bro. I just love listening to this. Bro,
I know,
you know,
bro.
But bro, Eric Bischoff, he goes, bro. But we'll see what happens this week. He's going to be on there. I think that's great. We'll hear probably from Eric Bischoff again because Eric dealt with him too. But I'll say again, you know, playing the devil's advocate here, or the advocate, no pun intended for Paul Heyman, Russo came in there to save a sinking ship. Eric could not save it because the powers that be did not want it to go over. They bring Russo in, it wasn't going over, especially after, and they kind of teased that at the end there. You had all of Bischoff's old guys there, you know, his crew still there, making all this mega money. They're the top guys in the company, top guys in the business. But Vince Russo wanted to have his own crew, you know, whether he truly really wanted to push him, or he wants like, hey, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. Kind of like how Paul Heyman does with a lot of guys, you know, and then he pushes them. Now, of course, the Booker T's, the Jeff Jarrett's and so forth. We'll get more into it next week, but still, anyway, yeah. You know, I'm trying
it's funny because I do have thoughts at Bash at the Beach and that whole situation, and how I feel about Vince Russo there is totally different how I feel about him overall. Vince Russo wasn't right there. So we're going to get to that all next week. Tonight's about Goldberg.
Yeah.
Tonight's about the finger poke. Tonight's about, I can answer this question, Anthony. He wants to know how we feel about WWE always trying to replicate the undefeated streaks in NXT when they bring in new talent. Here's what I'm going to say on that. They do that with everybody. AEW does it. WWE does it. NXT, wherever. You can't bring in a new talent get them over and have them lose right away. This is
Yeah.
why I know Ethan Page is going to be a loser wherever he is on the main roster because he came in at NXT right away, lost his first match. You don't bring it like Braun Breaker doesn't debut, then lose. Cody Rhodes doesn't debut, then lose. Will Ospreay doesn't debut, so you have to get him momentum going, Anthony. That's all it is. The only like even Asuka's streak, that was a different kind of streak than Goldberg. It was kind of the same, but she had banger matches. She knew how to go. You know, she didn't know how to speak English at the time, or maybe she broken English. She was a killer. Nobody could duplicate what Goldberg did. It's not fair to compare those two
Yeah.
or Oscar. It's not. It's just not fair because it's different era, different situations. You know, Goldberg was on the rise on the main roster where everyone can see. NXT's a spot where I'm sorry guys, nobody watches. I don't watch NXT. I'm sure people watch NXT. I don't. So I don't even know these undefeated streaks. It's not on national television on Monday night going against, you know, WWF at the time. But yeah, if people want to go undefeated in NXT, they should. That's how you build momentum. That's how you get recognized. I didn't know. I would never know Trick. Well, is it Trick Williams? I don't know. I don't watch NXT.
Yeah. Yeah.
I only know him because he's winning and he's hot right now. I think he's the champion.
He is. Yeah. I don't
But
watch, but
back to the. So what were we on? Were we on?
well,
Man,
we
we were
touched on
everywhere.
Russo. We were finishing up on Goldberg just winning the title from Hogan, and you know, let's see here. Michael's comment about why Hogan won that title, or why Goldberg won. You know, I understand giving it to him. He was red hot. You know, who else would you? I just again one of my biggest criticisms, even though I really enjoyed it as a fan, as a kid, whatever you want to call it, watching pay-per-view type matches on Nitro. Every Nitro, a lot of the times, the main event, it's not like now Raw, right? You go, tonight, we're gonna have Cody Rhodes and uh Kevin Owens against Tama
Yeah.
Tonga and Tala, whatever, you know, and they're like, oh, okay. That could sell for a Raw event, you know, but you're not getting Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton for the WWE title tonight on SmackDown. You know, like you don't really get that. You have that every week most of the time on Monday Nitro.
We're gonna
And
disagree here, man. Go ahead.
no,
Go
I'm
ahead.
just gonna say, as much as I loved it, you know, it's like that could have been such a you could have built that up. You could have made Goldberg interesting as a character. Besides just being some silent bald guy who walked to the ring angry. You know, you could have really put him up with Hulk Hogan and, you know, uh have him truly put a story over and put himself over. I just think that again, looking back, it's kind of like I understand the excitement of it all because again, you love those kind of random moments, but at the same time, it's like this could have been so much bigger.
Yeah.
But
So
disagree.
so you're talking about big matches on Nitro like week after week, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that was all wrestling back then. It mattered. Main events mattered. When Trish main evented the first Monday Night Raw with Lita, that
Yeah.
mattered. Now in 2024, we get Judgment Day versus three baby faces 20 weeks in a fucking row. Excuse my language, sorry. Or we get now the new bloodline versus three baby faces in a trios match. It's always the same thing, same formula. Back then, I wanted to go, oh, who's Goldberg fighting? Oh, who's he facing? If they did that, if you know, AEW gets criticized so much for, oh, you're putting Kenny Omega and Bryan Danielson in free TV. Oh, you're doing Will Ospreay versus Bryan free TV. And I'm always like, do you guys really want to pay $50 to watch this, or can we just watch this awesome match together and be happy? That makes me want to watch
Oh,
your
I watch
television
it and
show.
love it, you know, and I
So
did. I get you're right. I understand your point. I think that's fair. I think that's fair.
if we just had NWO versus three baby faces in the trios matches for 20 weeks in a row, like we get on Raw, honestly, like I don't watch Raw main events because they're all useless. They're all tag matches, all trios matches, and it ends in a DQ or a roll up. Like it's meaningless. I
I
want
will
meaning
just
in my
say
main event.
though, I think that's a part of that was probably why eventually WCW kind of burnt itself out. You
Yeah,
know, you could have spread this stuff out. You could have had maybe one Nitro, not have, you know, you could have probably used that main event and put an Eddie versus Rey Mysterio for the cruiserweight title instead of Hogan and Goldberg. I'm just throwing that out there. Of course,
I
they
got
had,
you.
you know what I mean? You could have probably done that. And I think And that's, again, I'm not saying Eric failed in that because Eric was the only one really pushing those guys. In WWF, the cruiserweights were treated as jokes. They were, you had Funaki and Suzuki and all those guys. They were treated as jokes, where in WCW, Eddie, La Parka, Ray, Conan, Billy Kidman, Juventud Guerrero, you think all these guys, Chavo, all those guys. They remember those guys, dude? And but they felt they was so they put them on primetime television. That was a win. But I think you could have done an Eddie versus a Ray main event and gotten away with it for one thing. Anthony, your question was Sean O'Hare and Mark Jindrak not ready for the title. They Michael answered. Yeah, they weren't even introduced at that point. Then they were nowhere near the stratosphere of any of those guys at that time. Let me see. If there's no story and just meaningless matches with no heat, I'm not interested. The story is important to sell the main event. I'm with you, Michael. I freaking love that, Michael. I believe in that.
But if the story is we're Judgment Day and we're bad guys and we're going to face 3 good guys for no reason every single week, right? Right? And that's just what we're getting. I understand, though, because guess what? If you put on, I'm an AEW mark. If you put on Danny Garcia, which we brought him on this show before, you don't know who Danny Garcia is. If you put Danny Garcia versus Will Ospreay, that's a banger match. But you're right, Michael. There's zero story to this. So there's no heat. But it's going to be a banger freak. It's going to be the best match you'll see on TV all month.
Bobby, I disagree with you. The early 2000 cruiserweight division was treated seriously. What do you mean? I didn't become a joke till 2010. I'm talking about before 2000s. I'm talking about WCW and WWF, not when Mysterio and Chavo and Eddie and all those guys were into WWE. WWE stole that. They became serious when the serious guys got there. But just like the divas of WWF, you look at how they are now, the women's division. You think about the lost opportunity, what they could have had back then. That's what I mean. I love this. This is something me and Josh have talked about with the story. And here we go with Justin with another one. Story is important. It's why the feud between CM Punk and McIntyre has been so awesome because of how they have built the story and they haven't had a one-on-one match yet. It's true. Everyone's gonna raw, and that's why even though I think I could have seen Drew going over, and I kind of thought he would. They don't need the title. The story is enough. The feud is enough. Why I don't watch? Go ahead.
Let's get back to the show, man. WCW.
Yes, Goldberg.
Who killed it? Goldberg. This goes into stories, though. This goes back. Can we tie that back in? I'm going to tie it all back into story.
Go ahead. Tie it in.
So when we're watching Nitro every night, and it's literally Goldberg versus Chavo Guerrero for the WCW World Championship match. What's the story? Bill Goldberg versus, Hugh Morris or whoever at the time, right? For the WCW Championship. Just to have Michael Buffer in the middle of the ring on every single Nitro to say, this is your main event. And it was a World Championship match every single Monday night. It seemed like. That's where the stories, that's why it failed. You're like, oh, these big matches are on Nitro. But yet again, why are we having these matches? Is Goldberg just a fighting champion? Is there a story? Is there heat? Is there anything going on? And that's why they failed. That's why these big matches failed, because there was no heat ever. It felt like nothing but run-ins. You ended up the show with 50 people in the ring. Nobody knew what was happening. It's kind of like you're watching AEW. So that's just going to wrap that little portion of the show up.
So we go through the Goldberg reign. He has, I think, a great match or a good match at Halloween Havoc with DDP. We talked about, if we had to pick one guy to beat Goldberg, it should have been DDP. We said that last week. Of course, that doesn't happen, and that's when kind of the hiccups start to happen with WCW. The match, even though it's pay-per-view, the feed cut off before the match was over. A lot of people missed the end. But Goldberg goes over. How did Kevin Nash get the title shot? Was it World War III?
World War III.
He won World War III, so he got the title shot. I always liked World War III. I love the WCW pay-per-views. World War III, everybody and their mother was in that ring. They had 3 rings. What was it, 60 men? Was it a 60-man battle royal?
Yeah. And everyone, when you cleared out your ring until there was like 20 people left or whatever.
Then so Kevin Nash, Yeah,
Yeah.
that
And
was
Kevin Nash cleared his out first, like immediately. Just
he was just standing in the corner, right? Yeah.
Yep.
I love that. Always love those things. But yeah, you had that, and of course, Fall Brawl. But anyway, Kevin Nash wins. Before that match, though, Goldberg versus Kevin Nash at Starrcade, they talk about Eric at that time again, being burnt out. Basically, he's totally at this time he realizes. Oh well, he found out that supposedly someone had accused him. Yeah, I don't think they ever said if it was a
Oh yeah.
talent or an executive, but someone had accused him that because he was giving all this money to these wrestlers, that somehow like the Hogans and the Machos and the Nashes and whatever and Hearts, that he was getting a kickback. That so he would give him, okay, I'm giving you Bret Hart 2.8 million. You give me 10% back of that or 5% back. He got accused of something like that. He didn't know anything about this investigation until after. I forgot who was the guy, who was the one who called him to his office. You remember that?
No, I don't remember the name.
It wasn't Siegel. It was someone else. I'm trying to remember. Either way, he was Eric's boss. He calls him in, breaks it, tells him, "Hey man, let you know you were being investigated for this, but don't worry, we cleared you." He took that as a total stab in the back. He was which I understand. It's like, dude, wait, you didn't trust me, you didn't come to me, and
Yep.
So at that point, he kind of stopped giving a crap. He was kind of like, okay, I'm done with these. There's somebody obviously trying to get me fired. So he said, I started getting disrespectful, started not really giving a damn. He was stressed. Kevin Nash saw this. This is how the story goes. Nash saw this and went to see Eric. And of course, Kevin Nash, Eric Bischoff, the people he was close with, I believe, at least I don't know if there was another one, but I know for sure it was Hogan, it was Nash, and DDP. I don't know if there was another wrestler that, I'm sure he was other guys as well, but those three I always hear as the ones that were closest to Eric Bischoff. But Bischoff went in there and said, "Hey man, let me get this off of you. I could let me get the book. I'll book the matches and whatever, And Eric said, "Okay." Now, again, I don't know how it was back then. I can't speak to the situation, but even I, outside looking in, like, it was a mistake. Especially when he's in. Now, if he was not involved, if he was like a guy who's retired or he's kind of like outside looking in, that's a different story because I think that's something Tony Khan should do is, talk to those, guys who are about to wrap it up or guys, who are on the outside looking in, maybe obviously not Arn Anderson, but someone like that, Terry Taylor and those other guys who are out, hey man, help me book this. Help me. Okay, great. But you let Kevin Nash do it, who's red hot. He is. He's not Goldberg. He doesn't have the belt. But again, leader of the Wolf Pack, cool as hell. You thought the Wolf, everyone, right? I don't think anybody thought the Wolf Pack and Kevin Nash weren't cool. I thought Kevin Nash was cool. Sting, goatee, red face paint was freaking cool. The Macho Man, red and black, even though Macho Man should have been on the white and black, and Hall should have been on red and black, but that's another argument for another day. The Wolf Pack, Conan, Odale, Viva la Raza. I just love that. Those were the cool things. But he's red hot. I don't know. He said he didn't book himself, even though he was the booker. I think that's how it went. You correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's.
Well, if he's not booking himself, then who is?
Who booked him to beat Goldberg? I think the what they had said was, who else could have beat Goldberg? Kevin Nash, 6'10", almost 7 feet, 350 pounds, blah blah blah. But again, you think of the Giant. That's the criteria. What about the Giant? What about Wrath? What about those other guys? And not saying I'm just throwing a name out there.
I gotta write that name down. He's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
Right? Well, I know. Wrath. You remember Wrath and or Chronic or whomever. I'm talking about these other. These are big.
Yes.
These. I mean, you look at them now. You look at them back then. You're gonna go, damn. These dudes would have been big now. These guys would have been red hot now if they were in this era. But if that's a criteria, which I call in respect to Eric Bischoff, I call bull crap. Let's just be real. Eric, Kevin saw his opportunity. Said, okay, I'm going to put myself to, beat Goldberg. And, again, I'll have to go back and listen to other things to hear what Nash's reasoning was, or if he really was. Of course, Goldberg hates him for it. Goldberg's like, oh, that wasn't the right time, blah, blah, blah. Kevin Nash calls him a mark. I don't agree that Nash could have been the only one to beat him. I think we could have, you know, we said both Diamond Dallas Page. Is there
Yep.
anybody else that we could have that you could say could have beat Goldberg and make it believable?
Listen, I don't see I don't see the problem with Kevin Nash doing it. I don't see why that was a problem. I see I see now as a kid.
No,
Let
no,
me
no. I
perspective,
agree.
perspective,
Nash
perspective.
was right. He wasn't wrong when he said
Yeah.
when I got him up in that jackknife, I was over as shit. That's what he said. Everybody popped. He
Yep.
wasn't wrong. We all popped. But
But when looking back at it, even as a kid, I thought, man, this is a dumb way to do it. I thought I thought that was the dumbest thing ever. Then you lead into the what's next. Well, what's next is tasers on a pole match with Scott Hall. That's what was next. The booking, him losing wasn't the wrong part. People are overlooking what happened afterwards. The joke they made Goldberg, him feuding with Scott Hall with a freaking taser on a pole match. Bill Goldberg's a killer, not a I gotta climb a pole, get this taser, and use a weapon, even though I am the weapon. That should have been the story. I am the weapon, right? Nobody's talking about that. The documentary didn't, the miniseries didn't. Everyone's worried about the actual finish.
well,
But Kevin Nash was right. He was over as F. The crowd popped. Everyone went nuts. But then people thought about it. People got upset. Jump online. Hey, I was online. I was on the message boards back then. I had AOL. I was on the insider websites. I knew Jericho was debuting before he did. I knew all this stuff was happening. I knew Nash was on the books. But I was on one of those boards going, this is bullshit, whatever. This is stupid. Blah 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 blah. I was one of those guys, but I was still thought it was super cool and I didn't have a problem with it. Like as in like, oh, that should never happen. Oh, that was why is he being portrayed as the wrong guy? Because he booked himself to win, or because people just didn't want Goldberg to lose at that point? I'm asking you, Bobby. Was it the problem was because guess what, guys? Nash was a top 3, top 4 guy there. So
sure.
why is it a problem that he won? Why is it a problem? Or were people just
I
mad
think you
because they
said
didn't
it.
expect it?
I think you just said it. And I think because I was just gonna bring up after you said it, it was like you hit the nail on the head. Kevin Sullivan said it. He said, I think it should have been a clean finish. Jackknife powerbomb, one,
Mhm.
2, 3, shock the world, go out. So I don't know if it was Nash or whomever said it can't be clean. Goldberg cannot lose clean. Maybe it was Goldberg because Goldberg again marking out for himself did not really want to lose. I think that if he would have lost clean 1, 2, 3 jackknife, and that would have been a better shock than anything. I don't think anybody would complain as much. I think the taser is the reason why people are looking back and are like,
Yeah.
I question this. Why? And that's not on Scott Hall. That's just a bad creative decision. Whoever decided to use the taser. Kevin Sullivan was right. It should have been a clean finish. It would have been better. And I agree with you. Again, I was just saying it. Kevin Nash was red hot. He was one of the coolest. That's why him and Hogan couldn't stay in the same faction anymore. Hogan and Nash could not be NWO Black and White anymore after they were, because Kevin Nash was not a follower. He was a leader. And they had the internal feud. They had actual feud backstage, and they said, okay, we're going to split these guys up. And we made the red and black and the white and black and the red and black, the white and red, the black and white, whatever you want to call it. And it was awesome. It was really cool having the Wolf Pack with Kevin Nash and Sting and so forth. So you're right. Having him go over wasn't terrible. Now if he writes himself in as going over, I can understand, again, Goldberg and so forth being pissed off, like, dude, you're booking yourself, but if he would have had that clean finish, I think fans would not give a damn 30 years later or how many years it's been now. Now, why did he go over? Truly, what was the point of going over if you were going to do what you did the night after, which Justin just referenced?
Mhm.
Again, I remember like it was yesterday. I remember it was, Kevin Nash said Goldberg, and they said it in the show. Goldberg, I want it, you and me again, blah, blah, blah. Goldberg gets come in, he gets arrested, he gets taken out. They didn't show that, but I do remember that. Hogan at that time, I believe was, he was kind of in and out. He wasn't really involved with WCW at that time. He was on a hiatus. But he was there that day. I think he was making a run for the president. You know, he wasn't really going to win, but he was running for president. I remember he was backstage, and then he says, you know, all right, he's getting arrested. I'm going to fight you for the title. And speaking as a fan back then, I'm like, holy crap, this is huge. Hogan and Nash, WCW World Title, Monday night. I'm going nuts. I'm excited. I cannot wait for this. Hogan comes out. He's wearing his street clothes. You know, he's wearing, which, okay, he wasn't supposed to be there, wasn't supposed to wrestle. Nash comes out. The atmosphere is crazy. The atmosphere at home is crazy. I'm hyped. I'm sitting at the edge of my couch. I'm with my brothers, Nick and Harrison. We're excited. We look at each other. It's the ultimate build-up. Boom. 1, 2, 3. We have a new world champion. What just happened? Now, going to be honest. I'm going to be honest. I'm a heel guy. And I was an NWO Hollywood guy. I popped when Hogan won the belt again. I popped when Hogan won. I went, whoa! But I still went, oh, because Hogan was the champion. I was young. I don't give a damn. Hogan, you know. But hold on. Hate on me in a second.
All right.
I know you're going there. God. But anyway, at that moment I popped. Looking back, I go, that was stupid. What was the point of all that? Why couldn't you just say, you know, I don't know, Hogan, oh, I'm giving you time. And then, you know, I don't know, do something stupid. Like, then why don't you just let Hogan get his win back? If you were just going to hand a belt back to Hogan, now this is me older, you know, if you just hand the belt back to Hogan, why not just let Hogan get his win back? You know, let Hogan beat the streak if that's what you're planning on doing. It made no sense. It still doesn't make sense to this day. You know, Eric Bischoff, I think it was Eric, who said, oh, we were, you know, it was, you know, oh, to keep the belt in the family and the NWO family. And now Hogan and Nash are, Hogan and Nash are back together. And that became the NFL, NWO Elite. That's what happened. Because then the black and white now is like its own little thing. You had Stevie Ray still in there. It was kind of, it became the B club. And then the NWO Elite with the Wolf Pack was the A club now. So, all right. It was a mistake now. You know, you look back, kind of, what the hell? And it is. I don't care what anybody says. I'll never understand it. I was talking as a kid. I popped just because it's Hogan. You know, oh crap, NWO's back together. You know, but doesn't make any sense. Your thoughts?
My thoughts are, Anthony, I'm going to answer your question because you asked it twice. Booker T, was he ready to be the face of the company back in Goldberg's run? No, Booker T was not ready at that point. You agree, Bobby?
Yes.
You agree? Okay. Booker T was ready maybe 2 years later, but not now. Not at that point. Okay. Finger poke of doom. Oh boy, where do I go? This is the first main event that bamboozled me, traumatized me. First one ever. Like, wow. And I could think of one recently when Brock Lesnar came out and said, I'm gonna team up with John Cena or Cody Rhodes. Sorry, it's Cody Rhodes. Same story. But I'm gonna team up with Cody Rhodes. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I was hyped. I'm like, this is gonna be the freaking coolest tag team match on Raw history. Like, I was hyped. And then they got me. This got me too, even as a kid.
Nash said that. He said the reason why people are so pissed off is because we got them.
Well, I wrote that quote. I only wrote 3 notes down on this entire this episode. I only wrote 3. And Kevin Nash, I wrote this quote. They don't know what they just saw. That's why they hated it. And he said that like it's a good thing. He thinks that this is still a good idea. He thinks in his mind, just from reading that quote and his smile on his face when he said it, he still thinks it's a good idea. And that we are the ones to blame. That's why it didn't get over. Because we didn't understand what we just saw. Yeah, no shit, we didn't understand we still don't know what we saw because it made no sense. Just like what Bobby said. Nothing made sense. You go all this way, tase your boy Goldberg, you jackknife him 1, 2, 3, you're over his ass just to do this. I could see later down the line, you want to go ahead and simp to Hogan, become a sympathizer with the immortal one over here. I can understand that down the road. Once your story with the Goldberg's over, down the
Yeah.
road, do your thing. But the night after,
Yeah.
what was that match for? Why did I, as a consumer, now this is my 38-year-old Josh, why did I, as a consumer, pay $50 for this pay-per-view, 40, whatever it was at the time, to see this massive main event for it to mean nothing? It means absolute that main
That's
event means
exactly, you're
absolutely
right
zero.
there. That win means nothing now. You beat the streak. It means absolutely nothing because of what you just did.
Yes.
What was the point of that? You know,
It just
I was over as F. Okay.
then
So
stay over.
you could have ran with it. You could have made a story out of that whole crap. Hogan, Goldberg is banned from WCW for a month. He's suspended for some action. Okay. Hogan's there one night. Hogan's like, let's go tonight. And we're not going to go for tonight. Let's run this over. The ultimate buildup only for Kevin Nash to do the same thing almost. Then, but what was the point? There was none. Yeah, it did. It rendered it meaningless. It would have meant so much more if he would have ran with it with the NWO Wolfpack and maybe a chase, NWO chase or whatever. It was all what it is.
When's the last streak that meant something? Like
I don't
when
think
the
any streak means anything. Maybe the Undertaker streak.
Gunther's, yeah, Undertaker's and Gunther's. Or I feel like Gunther's streak meant something when he lost. Could have meant more with Sheamus doing it. It is what it is. But Undertaker's streak, it meant something when he lost. But at the end of the day, did Brock Lesnar need that rub? Did he need it? That's a story for another show. But when's the last streak that ended that actually worked out for both people involved? And I just don't know. Are streaks great? Do we need streaks in wrestling?
This Taker streak wasn't really paid attention to till much later. And then we started really giving a damn about it. And again, I agree. Like Undertaker says now, it's like Brock Lesnar did not need to beat the streak. It was a mistake. And you think about it, like, oh, Kevin Nash might not have been needed to kill the streak. You could have gave that to, and I don't know if there was anyone, again, I can't say but I could say it's like, what's his face? Roman Reigns. You really wanted to rub him, you could have let him beat the streak. Undertaker, I said Bray Wyatt, okay, perspective. Now, in regards of the Michaels thing about, was it Hogan's creative control? Maybe it was Hogan's creative control. I think they would have said that because I don't think anybody is shy about saying if Hogan, of course, Hogan did not say no, but Hogan obviously did not say no to winning the belt. But Eric Bischoff, Kevin Nash, anybody in that, it was never shy about saying, oh, Hogan used his creative control, that I was going to lose. Because Kevin Nash was the booker. He was the booker. He could have said, all right, we're going to have Goldberg or whatever. I don't know if Hogan, because it was Hogan's character about it doesn't work for me. I don't think Hogan comes in and goes, oh, I'm going to face Nash tonight. Hogan had creative control on his character. So I think it was just something with Nash and Hogan. I'm sure, because again, I've heard this story over and over again. I mean, but I've never heard, oh, Hogan came in, and maybe I got to do research, and I don't mind doing that, but I never heard the story being, oh, Hogan came in and he was like, I'm winning the belt tonight. I don't know.
Charlotte Flair. He didn't Charlotte Flair enough back then.
Say what?
He didn't Charlotte Flair himself enough back then.
Oh,
I come in and just win the title whenever I want.
Yeah, it's all Charlotte Flair. Charlotte Flair has
they're the same kind of people, yeah.
Are they? Okay, well, all right. So,
listen, but you bring up a good point. I didn't think about that. This is the same guy. When we get to the Russo episode next week, I'm sure we'll talk about it. Hogan's idea, the whole Bash to the Beach, this was all Hogan's idea. I'm gonna Jeff Jarrett lay down, all that was his idea. So was this Hogan's idea? No one's bringing it up because Hogan had that bad idea.
They've admitted that was Hogan. The agreement was, that Jarrett would they got it over with the fans. What wasn't part of the plan was Vince Russo coming out and tearing Hogan up on a promo, but Russo says that was part of the plan, probably just not the words that he said. But if Hogan was part of that and they've admitted that, don't you think years later they would say, yeah, Hogan came in and was like, hey man, why don't we do how about I just poke you? And now we got now the NWO, which again, the NWO is a heel faction. They got you pissed off, but they were cool. Okay, we could have that explanation. I guess you could use that as an excuse. They've never said it. So I can't, not saying that that's not the case, because again, Hogan was not shy about winning the belt. We know that. But I think somebody would have said it already. I just
I don't know why they're protecting this. Like the real story has never come out. I don't
and I don't
believe.
think it will, because when Nash is saying that to me, it's kind of like, to me that's Nash protecting himself when he goes, the reason why you hate it is because it got you. And it's like, okay, to what that says to me is that that was your idea.
Yep.
That's what it says to me, because you don't want to admit, like, yeah, I messed up. Because again, you beat one of the ultimate streaks in professional wrestling, and it meant nothing 24 hours later.
Yeah. A
You know,
waste.
I understand the idea of, you know, let's get some ultimate heat. Let's drop the, let me give the belt to whatever. Okay, I think you could have figured a way to do that, but you just did something else. Anyway, now you say, as we're leading into Russo now, how did we lead into Russo? Eric Bischoff gets called back into his office, into the guy's office. I'm forgetting his name right now. And he said, hey, what are you doing? Oh, I'm on my way to wherever. I got to get ready for the show. Not anymore. What are you talking about? You got to go home. Turn back around. You're fired. Fires Eric Bischoff. I don't think anybody covers for Hulk Hogan's creative control. I think it's just an inside joke at this point, an outside joke. Michael, everybody knows about Hogan's creative control. So Eric goes home, tells his wife, goes fishing. He said it was a good day fishing. But what stood out at the end of that episode was Bischoff's flowers. Conan, uh, Brad Siegel, Kevin Nash, uh, anybody other than, I guess, Bret Hart gave Eric his flowers. Again, bringing in that talent, beating Vince McMahon for 83 weeks. Again, managing the ultimate egos of a Kevin Nash and a Hulk Hogan and a Randy Savage and a Sting and a Flair and whatever. Doing all that, yet being and making WCW, it was great. He controlled them from not talking about it. Good one. No, but Michael, I appreciate you. Everyone who's in the comments right now, that's awesome. We appreciate you guys watching and interacting with us. That's great. I hope you guys come back. We'll be back next
We're usually live
Saturday
on.
night.
We're usually live Saturday night, but we did the PLE review yesterday.
That's right. Yeah, which is cool. I enjoy it. But Eric Bischoff got his flowers, and I think they were well earned. I mean, we know his mistakes. We're aware of it, and I mean, it's crazy how no one learned from those mistakes years later.
Yeah.
But he's earned it. He's earned the flowers he got. And I think I heard him, I think afterwards with Conrad Thompson, how he was, a little taken aback by it, but he was thankful for it. I like what he said. I think it was about Brad Siegel. I think it was Brad Siegel, where he was like, what do you think about Brad Siegel? He's like, oh, I thought it was real nice. I liked him. I liked him this episode. I don't like him last one. I wanted to punch him in the face, because Brad Siegel he says, wrestlers are just compulsive liars. And that pissed Eric Bischoff off, and he's like, not wrestlers. He says, it's the executives who are, he's like, okay, Eric, we got you, brother. But anyway, your thoughts on Eric Bischoff? Did he deserve those flowers, and the impact he's had on pro wrestling years later, what he was able to do?
Yeah, he's a legend, man. Like, to me, he's a legend. He's up there with the greatest bookers of all time. I think he was able to think about it. Like, yes, he failed at the end. Hard crash, hard burn, but it's hard to overcome all the odds he had to overcome. Executives, talent, just everything was in against him. Everything was. But he was the main reason. We talked about it last show. He was one of the main factors in bringing in the Attitude Era and bringing in the Wars and bringing in better programming on both sides, on TNT and over there on the USA Network. It was because of Eric Bischoff, and he pushed the envelope. He was the one who got everything started. He wasn't afraid to push buttons. He wasn't afraid to bring in these guys and talk about Vince, talk about the WWF, call him out on air. It was okay. It was fine. It worked. It worked for a long time. The only problem was, I feel like I feel like he was one of these authors who wrote one book, but had a saga in mind, but only finished the one book. Didn't know how to get to the second book. Didn't know how to get to the second chapter. Didn't know how to get to the second page in some feuds or some programs. But yeah, he deserved, all the credit in the world. To me, when he debuted on WWF television, WWE television, the I'm back song, and he's there. And I'm like, holy crap. This right here is freaking cool. It was because Eric Bischoff and I grew up watching him. He was my Vince. He was the one who got me. I never watched WWF. I was never introduced to wrestling because of WWF.
Yep.
Bret Hart didn't introduce me. Shawn Michaels didn't introduce me. None of those guys did. It was Sting. It was Hogan in WCW. It was Eric Bischoff. It was the NWO.
Yes,
That's
sir.
what got me. So, and that was all Eric Bischoff. Without Eric Bischoff, I would not be doing the show. I would not be watching. I would never watch professional wrestling. I would never got into it without the NWO and Eric Bischoff. So that's where I stand on Eric Bischoff. Whether he's wrong, whether he's right, whether you don't like him or whether you do like him, he's the reason why I'm here. So I'll never talk bad about Eric Bischoff.
I'm with you, brother. I think we should end it right there. Guys, thank you all for tuning in. Join us next Saturday night, 8 p.m. Eastern time for episode 3 of the Who Killed WCW review series with me and Josh. And for all those tune in again next week, will be mainly for Michael, especially that Vince Russo episode. We're going to talk about it all. I'm sure we're going to hopefully get all sides of the stories. For CJ, thank you for tuning in at the end there. We appreciate you. Hope you enjoy it. Enjoy all your movies, such. See here and there, but we appreciate everyone watching. Justin, thank you, man. Appreciate you. Thank you, guys. Everyone there. Good put here. Don't forget the Kimmelnator, Josh, on OUS. Once Upon a Sunday, fantasy football. If you guys love fantasy football and you want to try to beat your colleagues at work this season on the upcoming football season, go see Josh, Justin, and Dave for all the advice. They got great advice there. And you catch them on Real Talk Wrestling. Real Talk Wrestling is on Friday nights now, 8 o'clock.
For the time being. Yes.
For the time being.
Real Talk Wrestling focuses more on AEW because I'm an AEW mark. I'll say it loud, just like I was a WCW mark. I'm an AEW mark. So yeah, catch me there. Real Talk Wrestling Friday nights, 8 o'clock for the month of June. And then we go back to Thursday, and then OUS every Wednesday night here. Fantasy football, it never stops, guys. It's just ramping up. Fantasy football. Yes,
love it. I love it. And catch me on Saturdays for Finn's Talk today. For when we're talking Miami Dolphins, and of course, right now Sunday mornings. Not today, but next Sunday, I'm sure, or Wednesday nights. We got East 10th Street Boys, which is talking everything Miami sports and life and growing up Miami. But again, catch us next Saturday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, me and Josh for another episode of No Holds Barred. And again, episode 3, the Vince Russo episode. We'll talk about Bash and the Beast and everything and how Hogan got screwed. But that's it. Thank you all for having us, and good night.
It's the Finn's Talk Sports Network, FTSN, talking major sports and even wrestling.